So let's start already, no? It's already 4 o'clock, and um, we have an hour and 30 minutes for today, as usual. Now, before we start off class, I would like to ask if anyone would like to volunteer, not really volunteer, but I'm going to give plus points, plus 5 points for the middle of the class, plus 5 points for each term, no? For the prelims, midterms, semifinals, and finals. Since I think it's necessary for me to track the performance of everybody in the class. So tracking attendance can also help with that, no? Again, the plus points for every term for the semester for the middle. Now, does anyone want to volunteer to be the Beagle?
Ako Marb.
Okay, sige, sige, sige. Thank you,
Akon ka
Marb.
dun.
Halala. Sige, sige.
Joke lang.
Sad.
Okay, Marb. Kindly just stay behind later after class, Marb. Uh, um, yeah, after class, so that I will teach you how to go through the class attendance record. I'll just do a short roll call for today, no? Before and then next week, our Beadle will start checking the attendance. Stephanie, I'll just share the attendance right now via email. If ever any student will come in class later on, you can edit it if your gadget, if you can access your gadget while being in the Google Meet, no? But for students who will be late later on, kanang chat na lang sila sa chat box nga naa sila para check ila attendance. Right. So, just going to email Mark for a moment. Ikas po na ko ang klase everyone sa international systems kasi Yvonne ang leader, di ba? Taban na gid kayo sa plus points. Isa pa may line ako nga kuan major subject sa contemporary international relations mga pol sci kinsa may nagbido dito ha kalimot mo ko kinsa ay si Rika di ay si Rika ang nagbido dito. Okay, so this afternoon class we are going to have the first lesson which is introduction to research. I already posted the official textbook of the class as what you may have already seen in Google Classroom. May I ask everybody if you were able to see the book that was posted?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, okay, good. That will be our official textbook for the whole school year, up to the second semester. So, as you may have browsed, not whether or not you have browsed through the book is actually quite good, and it's a very easy reference for research, and it's not as difficult as we may think. No. Anyway, Marb is present. Elaine, just doing the roll call. Not here yet. Charlene. CZ. And don't forget to unmute your microphones when you
Present.
okay, when you say you're present. Shania,
Present, ma'am.
Janine, Jamaica.
Present, ma'am.
All right. Hannah, Mary Joy, Abby, Christine, Picasso,
Present, ma'am.
Syra, Roxanne,
Present, ma'am.
Kai,
Present, ma'am.
Shana,
Present, ma'am.
and Thea.
Present, ma'am.
So, all right, so let's start class na. Stephanie is here. Okay, come on, I think maupan na. Right. I know that I gave as an assignment last week that the class should think about you, no, students should think about your groupings already for for the for the research, no. However, I'm just going to ask for the groupings maybe next week. For today, we'll just focus um, on the first lesson, which is Introduction to Research, and then we will then go through the videos that I mentioned last meeting, na COVID 2025 and Research in IS. The videos are not exactly that long. I think it will just take us maybe 20 minutes to discuss that, 20 to 30 minutes to discuss that. And then what else? That's basically all for today. On Monday next week, we are going to continue the lesson on Introduction to Research, no? And then we will proceed to lesson 2, which is Elements of Research. And then on Thursday next week, we will then discuss lesson 3, which is Research Methods, and then lesson 4, Characteristics of a Good Research Problem. So I believe that most of our lessons will be a lecture given by me, no? However, it will depend if we are going to have activities during class, which will entail for you to apply what you learned, no, in the lecture. So for example, if we're going to discuss about characteristics of a good research problem next week, Thursday, we might or you might have to participate in an activity wherein I will ask you to write a research problem, no? So so kindly just maybe start thinking about what you might want to do as an exercise on for a research problem. Sige. Now, as per class policy, I would like to remind everyone that if your internet can support it, kindly turn on your cameras for the whole duration of the class. And then we can just proceed na. Hi, Sean. Gana kayong balay nila, Shana. Oh, sada kayong pintal. Joke lang, Sean. Sige. Syra, hello. Good afternoon. May sulod na gid ka, Syra. Nabalakan ako gamay sa mga kay wala ka kakuan. How are you, Syra? Unmute lang ang mic if magstorya. Dili maka-unmute sa mic. Mag-set up pa. Sige. Hi, Kai.
No, ma'am.
May I ask, Syra, ano karon pa ka nakatunga first ni mga attendance? Secret na lang. Yes, Syra.
Kuan, ma'am, try pa ko connect sa sa Google Classroom.
Hi, please.
Namang good kay kuan ato. Galisod ko connect.
Kumusta naman ka, Syra?
Kaya ma'am, ikaw ma'am, kumusta?
Okay naman. Okay, gyapon. Second sem na. Na ako sa school na karon ko so more. Mo na ni itsura sa class o una. Na-aware mo or more nag-wonder mo unsa naman ang bakla ni ang kulin nga. Lahi na opisina na. Nimbalin na ta sa kuan everyone sa Arts and Sciences building sa ASB na ni siya at abay sa AVR. So, luag na kayo niya mong opisina din eh. Ako na lang isa nabitin kay nanguli ng mga tao. Anyway, dili kami sa office ga kuan ga klase kay pasbas sa internet. Good to see you, Syra. Nara ka Cagayan, Syra? Or sa Cebu? Usually, ga-travel mo ko imong family. Sige. If ever you want to send messages, guys, you can just use the chat as well. So, let's proceed, no? Okay, noted, MJ. Yeah, MJ. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, if um, for every class that we will have for the prelims and midterms, I would like you to open the book now that was posted in the classroom. So the book is Research Methodologies. This one, this file, PDF file. Research Methodology, a step-by-step guide for beginners. This book was forwarded to me by Attorney Dave Alvarez, the EdTech specialist of the College of Arts and Sciences, and the research coordinator as well of CAS. So Sir Dave forwarded this to me. And I believe this is also the same book that the Natural Sciences Department is using for their research class now in BS Bio. So we go to page 22. Kindly go to page 22 of the book, and we are going to start off with Introduction to Research now. So this is actually the lesson will be Introduction to Research, but the chapter here is Research, a Way of Thinking. So yes, this is Research in IS proposal. Now, our objectives for this week and next week are the following now. For you to be able to apply an advanced understanding of research, for you to know about some of the reasons for doing research, how research can be used to gather evidence to inform your practice, specifically international studies. Now, how can we try to answer the questions that we may have about some issues in the world now or in our community? The applications of research as well, characteristics and requirements of the research process, types of research from the perspective of applications, objectives, and inquiry modes, and then research paradigms. So first off, research, an integral part of your practice. What does integral mean? Anyone? Sibot pa sabot sa integral? It means important.
Important, ma'am.
Right, Marb. So that's important. Now, I think a part of me feels like teaching research in college seems like a very Western idea. Kay murag, if we look at Filipino culture class, I feel like this is an aspect of the West na that has been spread to other universities in other countries. Kay kuan naman sa actually research is basic part of tertiary studies. So being in college, students have to undergo a research project, no? As part of being a member of the scholastic community, being students, no? So let's say, for example, class, just a top of my head example would be Facebook. So don't you think that every edition that Facebook has put in their website, in their app, no, is actually based on research? And why do you think that Facebook is still very, very engaging, even if it was founded in 2004, I think? But here we are almost 20 years after 2004, and people are still using Facebook. Because at the base level of the operations of the company of Facebook, they do have research as a basis for looking for ways to engage engage people online. So the importance of I believe I saw that. No, I think I heard or I read an article a year ago or so um, about the COO of Facebook. Um, the COO of Facebook was a woman, and I think I sporadically read about the fact that the app itself does employ research, to find out what makes people engage online. So um, with every new feature that you see on the application, that has been that has undergone that has undergone a process of development. So when they develop a new feature, they test it out. So that's basically the importance of research on the level of information technology. Now, in our field, in international studies, um, I think no, if we refer to higher level scholarship, usually scholarship that is published in journals. Um, Most of the research in international studies is actually more scholarly, analyzing events that happen in the Middle East, for example. No, so often, especially for doctorates, those who are taking up their PhD, a doctorate a doctorate degree would require for PhD students to come up with a theory. No? So often their theory, they have to in international studies, no, they have to test out a theory that they have about the world. One theory that I encountered last semester, no, in diplomacy of the Middle East, because I taught diplomacy of the Middle East to the fourth year old curriculum students last semester. One theory was about, let's see here, I'm not sure if I still have my notes for that lesson, no. But it discussed about the dynamics of conflict in the Middle East. Nanong gubot man kaayo dito sa Arab world. It's not that we're talking about the fact that it's gubot, quote end quote, but it's more on explaining the reason behind conflict. So I'm still browsing through the actual theory that was used there, but there was an explanation given by scholars, and it basically revolved around still an explanation towards conflict. So in that level, in our field per se, kindly just take notes, class, because I would want to write this down on as a visual aid, but it's going to be my computer might hang, so just take note of what I'm saying right now in relation to IES, research in IES. Um, I'll just try na lang siguro to write this down so that you will have a copy or of sorts. I'm just going to look through if I still have the copy for that lesson. In any case, like for example, theories to explain conflict in countries in the Middle East. Okay, so research in international studies. Examples in the doctoral level, formulating a theory in international relations to explain phenomena in when it comes to in terms of relations among states. Okay, as an example, theories to explain conflict between countries in the Middle East. I think one theory mentioned that there is an observation that in the Middle East there are blocks of power. They said that some scholars said no, that in the Middle East, I'm just going to look through. Excuse my screen, class, as I go through my maps in the subject, just to illustrate to everyone. Now, as you can see, this is the Middle East, no? And the explanation of the theory, or we were using a book called Diplomacy of the Middle East. Let's see here if I have the text here. Conflict and Diplomacy in the Middle East. So this was the book that we were using. And according to some of the authors, the Middle East per se is composed of blocks of power. So one block of power is located around the Persian Gulf. So this is the Persian Gulf, no? So which is composed of Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, no? So this region, as well as Saudi Arabia. So this region comprises one power block. And then another power block is the Maghreb region, that is Maghreb, Maghreb. And this region in Northern Africa also comprises another power block. And this group of countries have internal dynamics of conflict that also have dynamics with the other blocks. And then here in Israel, no, in the Israeli region, that includes Israel, Jordan, Lebanon. There's also another block here, no, of a power block. So if you're familiar with Hezbollah, So Hezbollah is supposedly an extremist group in Lebanon, no? That is against Israel, because the core conflict there is between Jews and Arabs. So Jews are people who believe in Judaism, obviously, no? And then Arabs are Muslims. So there is a long-standing conflict between Arabs and Israelis in Israel, class, no? Especially with Palestine. Palestine is basta murag kuan na siya kanang it's a very in-depth discussion, the Arab-Israeli conflict, but in essence, Hezbollah is an Arabic extremist quote-unquote group. I'm not even sure if Hezbollah was behind the bombing in Lebanon last year. I assume that you've already heard of that. You've heard of that, right? Class, the bombing in Lebanon. Hello, class.
Yes, ma'am. Katong sa Beirut.
Yes.
Sa Beirut. All right. So this comprises one power block. So that is essentially one example of research in the scholarly level, class, in the level of scholars, of international relations scholars. They often analyze events in international relations and try to come up with theories that would explain conflict. And in this case, just the notion of having power blocks in the Middle East. Sometimes you might wonder, if I come up with an idea, ma'am, don't you think that somebody else might have already came up with a similar idea? Have you ever wondered that question, class? Nakawonder na ba mo Ma'am, kanana ko idea pero basig na anay lain nakahuna-huna ana. Niya basig din ni original lang akong idea. Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Kinsa na?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? Kinsa tong nag-yes?
Sanaya, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So, I believe that is actually the purpose of review of related literature. No? So, that is the purpose of the RRL. If we go to the outline for the research, now research format outline, this was what I posted last week. So in your research paper this school year, you are going to write chapters 1 to 5 of a whole research project, and chapter 2 is review of related literature. So the review of related literature, that is the purpose of the RRL, that RRL because it's RRL. The purpose of the review is for you to review about existing theories or existing literature that has the same idea as yours. So, yan na siya. So, for example, if ikaw nakahuna-huna nakadaan about atong power blocks nga concept pero dili na ka sure if ga-exist na siya nga kuan nga theory. So, mangita ka, the researcher obviously has to review existing literature about the same topic in order for him or her to know if their idea is contributing a new type of knowledge, new knowledge to the subject of the research. So that's on a higher level, or rather on a scholarship level. In terms of practicality, no, I always want to be practical class in what I want to teach in class. No, kana bitong murag magamit sa zero ninyo pag mo-graduate mo, no, kay kana mag-spend dako kay nga time para lang magbuhat og isa ka butang pero dili bitaw din magamit pag mo-graduate bitaw. I feel like katong college pa manggod ko class kay katong research na wala kay nagitudloan og tarong adto kay murag I'm not going to say any negative thing at all, no further, but because I always want to, because it will always go to experience, no, one's experiences. Pero kuan lang, if a person is how am I going to say this? If a person is interested in studying abroad, for example, studying abroad for a master's degree, it's really very important to do well in research, no? Because that can add to your resume if ever you will apply, no? And especially if you apply for work in the government, hopefully if you will become diplomats in the future, that can also be a good asset, no, in a company, the skill of research. And mind you, class, research abroad is very difficult and very fast-paced. I had a friend from Ateneo de Davao. No, I think some of you already know that I used to teach in ADU prior to being in Liceo last 2 years ago. And nakoy amigo sa ADU nga si Mr. Ian Salvania. So Ian was, did I show you a photo of Ian? Not sure if I should. Pagkita na to, chika-chika ra bilo ni. So si Ian kay kauban ako ni siya sa sociology department sa Ateneo niya. Si Ian kay kanang he was able to study in Central European University in Hungary. So he went abroad in September of 2019. So nag-master siya sa Hungary at Budapest. Yes, that was in Budapest. And he went to Budapest for his MA, and I can't remember his research, no, but he is a very good. He's like basically a genius. That's all I can say about him. All right, so obviously I agree that Ian deserves to go to CEU man na siya. If you're familiar with CEU, it's one of the top universities in political science in the world. So, okay, yan na, siya na siya corona, no? Nakaadto siyang CEO. Pero, lisod ko no kayo, kay isa ra gid ka tuig ang ilang master's program, no? Diri sa Philippines, kay duwa man ka tuig ang atong master's program diri, pero dito kay, kuan siya, 2 years. I know, isa ra ka tuig, so, before actually before being accepted or before his acceptance to the school, he had to pass his research proposal, and he spent the year being in university na for his master's to finish his degree. So, or rather his paper. And I remember there was one time we went to a cafe in along the campus no niya. Sulat mo siya dito, sulat siya sa iyang paper niya. Kuan kaayo kanang pero bitang murag wala na kay love life kay sige na lang kagawan. Sige na lang kang sulat og research paper. Pero I feel like I feel like it was always his dream to go to CEU, and I'm really happy that he was able to finish his dream, no? And ano, and with that, yeah. So what? But then the pandemic happened, and I think he's stuck in Hungary. Murag na stuck si Ian dito sa kuan sa Hungary. So mao ni among picture dito sa una. Not sure if maklaro ni siya, no. So excuse me. And then so I believe that yes, that can really be an advantage because no in terms of research. But I was talking initially about the purpose of research. So one purpose would be applications, like in terms of professionally, whenever you will graduate, having a good background, especially if you become best paper. I'm not sure if I'm going to give an award for best paper in this batch, no, because in our time in college, we had a best paper na ako na may kanang best research paper sa kuan sa amuang time when I was an IS student. But yeah, having a good study while you are still in college can be a good part or a good a good improvement, a good addition to your resume. And aside from that, how about for students who don't really want to go to the academe, who don't exactly have plans to be in the academe? I really acknowledge that, no, and to tell you the truth, no, majority of my batchmates in college in IS, not everybody went to BFA, not everybody even pursued anything remotely connected to IS at all. Most of my batchmates, I had stewardess friends now who are in Philippine Airlines and in Cebu Pacific, even international airlines, no. But pipila rasad na katura sa mga grabe kagwapa nga kana dili ma-reach ang kagwapa, no. So like, it's either yan nakakagwapa or dili na lang. So yeah, some of my classmates went to the government, some became business people. So also may pulo sa research nila, wala. Honestly speaking, no, dili gid tanan na kuan. It's not for everyone actually, if you think about it. But we can see the benefits, no, from the discussion right now. We can see the benefits. I can't really find a good photo of this person. So many iyan sa may ate nara kanang social nga mga picture nga naa sa snow. Naa sa snow. For a moment. So, okay, now following this discussion, we're just going to go through the book, no? So kindly browse through the book right now, class. I would like you to browse through the text. Also, class, I had, there was an upperclassman na when I was in college in sa XU mo ko nag-IS sa una. Na ako'y upperclassman sa mo ang na best paper siya sa ilahang research paper tong college pa sila. Upperclassman, 1 year ahead siya sa kuha. Si Ad, I think na-mention ako si Ada before sa atong GA last year. Sa, sa atong GA. Si Ada, kay best paper to silang research sa una. Wala ko kabalon sa to ilang topic. Pero, naana siya sa Germany. Ay, sa Austria, di ay. And then, nagdugay po siya dito, na PhD siya dito. Right po siya, cum laude po to siya actually. So, kana siya, no? Showing my photos here. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. So this was Christmas 2018, and this is Ian, and this was me. So, ano yung the faculty of College of Arts in ADU before. So this is Ian, and what else? Sure if maka-scroll nga picture, no? Excuse me. So this is close up of Ian, my friend, and he's in Switzerland, I think, here. And then this was him in, I'm not sure where this is, if this is somewhere in Europe, basically. Sila ni dito, no? So, kinsa may gusto mag-study abroad sa inyo, ha, everyone? Nara si Ian. Anyone wants, lisod man study abroad karon kay COVID. Pero, yes, this is them there, no, with his friends. But before pandemic, did anyone want to study abroad among you? Wala gyapon. Sige. Ito, everyone. How about anyone? Like Thea? Haven't really crossed your mind, Thea?
I don't.
The exchange program?
I don't. If given a chance, no, ma'am.
Pwede ra magyapon. Daghan kaayo, but right now naaman ta sa stuck at home man ta, no, so I'm not sure if na opportunities, pero I really encourage you to apply kani mga opportunities, kay applyan gina siya, dili na siya nga murag inyo gina i-google, tuyoon an ninyo Google, kay daghan kaayo mga exchange programs sa mga embassies, no, pero karon pandemic man, so wala gyud na for sure. Pero what if kung mag-graduate mo, I really encourage you, kay daghan kay mong potential class, honestly. Kani nga batch, no, daghan kaayo sa inyo nga na potential gid na daghan pa mo pwede mabuhat in terms of inyo bitong drive to be leaders, like your performance in class, ang inyong energy, no, ang inyong pong commitment to service, ang inyong pong your communication skills, maayo kayo mo communicate, no, as young as you are, and your experience so far, daghan kayo mo pwede maabot, honestly, if I may say so. Ang inyong pong way in performing sa Model UN, etc. So that's for just an initial discussion. Continuing on to introduction to research. Unsa may maingon ninyo adto? Akong giingon karon lang.
Gusto ko mahimong si Ian, ma'am. Char.
That's okay. Thank you for saying that, Marv. For a while lang. Katupod si Mr. Salvania is a pol sci major sa Ateneo. mga 4 years younger sa kuha. Ako initially class kay gusto kana nadawat man ko sa kuan, nadawat ko sa US, nadawat ko sa Australia, nadawat ko sa Malaysia for study abroad pero wala lay scholarship. Lisod kay na wala scholarship na kanabit ang dili full ride nga ikaw ray magbayad, mahal ba kayo ang kuan ang I was accepted in Clark University in Massachusetts and then in Murdoch University in Perth, Australia, and then a diplomacy course as well in Malaysia. Pero wala lang ko nag-pursue kay wala scholarship. Nice scholarship pero dili full, which is what gyapon. Ani ang full nga scholarship sa Australia is Australia Awards, which is very prestigious, similar to Fulbright. If you're familiar with Fulbright in the US, ang madawat sa Fulbright ika na pong mga grabe ka imbang nga mga tao nga gahi gigig ka ng background. Kani bitang maka-change sila sa world ding ana nga level nga maka Fulbright scholarship ang tao. So kanang prestigious education para maka full scholarship. Pero napoy uban nga mag-eskwela abroad sila ang gabayad kay para maka-migrate sila. Are you familiar with that class? Ang process bitaw sa migration, para sa ni mga nurses or anyone nga ga-migrate sa lain country, sila may gabayad ana niya milyon-milyon ben ang bayad ana mag-migrate mag-eskwela.
Yes, ma'am. Sila pa yung mag-pay sa school.
Familiar ka na sa Ira, di ba? Kana mga ga-migrate kay mas paspas makagawas kung student visa ka. Anya kung once gani nga mag-student visa ka pero dili na siya scholarship but pasabot ikaw ug imong family ang magbayad ana. Mao na siya ang tactic sa mga visa immigration nga mga companies sa Philippines, sa Cebu na kumuatan ka og visa immigration seminar ang ila i-advise sa imo kay mag-apply ka as a student kay para once na naka didto pero magbayad ka sa imong visa o magbayad ka sa tanan. So murag mo abot gyud milyon na niya agdagan ang mga tao usahay kay ginalon na nila no galon sila para makakuan sila makaskwela sa gawas para maka-migrate sila. Di na sila mobalik din sa Philippines. Kina-renew ra din na nila ilang student visa. So going back to the discussion, so research is an integral part of your practice. We discussed about doctoral level research, but also the potential to be accepted in studies abroad. No? And research in the government, PFA, Department of Forest Affairs. Naguna-una ba ako class nga mag-take ko sa foreign service siguro next year. So may maingon ninyo na kung mag-diplomat na ko.
Go lang, ma'am.
Online class na nandayon ta.
Wow, such an opportunity.
Yes. I feel like I'm ready. Kay last na kong take mo good kay kuan ka na wala ko nag-review ba. So kung mag-review ko ani.
Oh my God, ma'am. May instructor ng diploma.
Ayaw, may kalimti, ma'am.
Pero may kapit, ma'am, aw.
Dali lang yung kapit lugar no kung ana sa DFA. Lisod ka ayo makatrabaho sa DFA kay ilaharang tubag si mo pirmi kay take the exam first. Hala, lisura gyud. I feel like last year kay maragdaghan man ang nakapasar sa foreign service. Mga kuan kanang 20 people, 20 plus. So naanay gamay ipaglaom no. Paano siya passable na siya karon, not sure. So going back no. Now yes, research is undertaken within most professions. Research is more than a set of skills. Research is a way of thinking. Would you agree? So a person who is inquisitive or maybe a person who is not inquisitive or dili magig ko naturally inquisitive, wala gid ko question sa life. Dawat na ko sa kakitabo or siguro no. So kaning research is a way of thinking. So what is that way of thinking? Examining critically the various aspects of your day-to-day professional work. So for example, no, a person can do research within their office, within their organization, trying to research about, and research doesn't have to be difficult. Plus no nga kana bitaw mura siya tag isa ka tuig mahuman. May uban nga research project na pwede ra 3 months. If you go to NGOs such as Save the Children, such as the United Nations, the UN itself, no, they always base their projects on data from the community. I applied for a research project a year ago before ko nadawat sa Liceo class kay I applied for a research project in Samar. Kani ang project adto, it was in an NGO, no, in an international NGO, and the project was on gender. It was a gender project among school children, education to siya, and ang ilang project was they were doing a project on on education skills training. So ang NGO kay naa sila program nga magtudlo sila skills training sa mga poor nga children sa sa Samar, especially sa mga disadvantaged nga mga children or youth. So ang NGO kay nangita sila researcher nga magkuha sa data dito sa schools within 5 schools, I believe, or 5 barangays. To get they wanted to hire a researcher to do a research on the baseline data of the level of skills that the children have, and what would be the best skills training that should be given to them. So looking at the industry in the barangay, you know, what are the potential sources of income in the barangay, and in order to for example, if in that barangay the potential source of income would be fishing, for instance, so the NGO wanted to know if they should hold a skills training if they should hold a skills training and on what topic. So that is where research can come in, that so these international NGOs really would spend millions of pesos in order to get that information. Okay, as I remember, in my research proposal, magud sa ilaha, naghimo ko og budget because as per advice from one of the professors in Xavier, nangayo kog advice sa director sa research in Mindanao Culture na si Dr. Chona Chavez. Dr. Chona Chavez is a sociology professor, one of my colleagues at sa Xavier last year. And niana si Dr. Doc Chavez nga kung maghimo ka og research proposal nga ipasa nimo sa NGO, imo na nambutangan og budget kung pilay gasto. Yang anong maabot man nag milyones ang gasto ana, kay ikaw mismo kana mangayo man sad ka og imuhang own nga fee as a researcher, and then akong gitanaw ang average nga fee for researchers class. I saw that it was around 70,000 a month. I saw na somewhat ingana ang ilahang gibudget sa ilahang mga research proposal nila. Pero tag 3 months na sada siya nga research, dapat makuha na nimo ang data within 3 months. So what I'm trying to say is it doesn't have to be a 1-year endeavor. Research can be done within 3 months, no? Katugong ako ang proposal kay gisulat ato na akong mga 2 ra ka adlaw, siguro 3 ka adlaw gibiliran to na ako niya, gipasa din ako sa NGO niya. I really forgot the name of the NGO, but I'm not sure if it was UN or something, no. Pero gitawagan gid ko nila niya kanang they liked my proposal. However, the downside there was I did not have a research team with me. Kaya apparently kaning mga NGO kay ga-assume sila nga naa na kay research team daan nga good to go na ka. So I learned there that when you apply for to become a researcher, it would be good to already be a researcher in a research institute. Kana bitaw na kay research team, and this is what other universities also do. Like if you're familiar with the process in UP, no, in UP Mindanao, sa UP Mindanao mo magyan siyang process nga kana mag-apply sila to be a researcher in a project, nya bayran gid sila nya muna moabot nag 1 million pesos ang ilahang research project, kay kuha na siya kaning you have to pay for example, if you're going to have a focus group discussion in the community, so you have to pay for the respondents and the food and the materials and even your airfare to the area, bayaran po na siya, so apil na siya sa budget, no? And yeah, kanang, and everything else basically. And then what else? I think that's one good thing, and it can really bring in revenue to a department. For example, in a university na ay naagi ka ng constant na funding sa research, nga research gid sige ang mga faculty sa department, so maka-bring in din sila kwarta sa ilahang department, no? Okay. Agencies really look for researchers, good sad. And if you're interested in becoming a professional researcher, I think a person or an individual has to really have like a professional gid nga kaning tax or something sa BIR. I heard nga ipa-register sa gid na niya ang iyahang research endeavor as a business sa City Hall, and then by mag-apply siya nga makakuha siyang resibo sa BIR para mahimo siyang professional gid nga researcher nga makadawat na din siya og clients dayon. And then if the researcher will create a research team will involve like the main researcher and then iyang co-researcher, kanang uban mo magsulat ano or mga research assistants na sila ang bahala sa pag-ihap sa kuan sa mga surveys, pagkuan sa data, pag-input ingana, no? So it's really a vast, and it's really vast, no? Research can include many aspects. So I'm just going to include here research in non-government organizations, baseline data for community projects, needs analysis, in communities. Okay. If you are also familiar with if you're familiar with reports written by the United Nations or published by the United Nations, no, kaning mga data, excuse me, magkuha na ko sa akong charger. For example, kanang mga information na i-publish nila, mga quarterly reports, naka-base na tanan sa research. Niyagibayaran pa na nila nga na ay researcher ana. So, okay. Examining critically the various aspects of your day-to-day professional work, understanding and formulating guiding principles that govern a particular procedure. For example, the example that I gave earlier, no, in relation to developing Facebook, no, so there are researchers in the Facebook company, no, that understand and formulate principles to govern as a particular new addition to the website, developing and testing new theories that contribute to the advancement of your practice and profession. This is in relation to the example that I gave earlier about theories written by PhD candidates and scholars, not to explain phenomena in the world, in society. And sometimes, class, you might wonder that are my ideas even valid? Is it valid nga maghuna-huna ako nga na theory nga? For me, I feel like, let's say you have a theory about that explains something, no, in your observation of politics, of culture, na kay theory about anything in life, and you're not sure if valid siya kay you're just a young person, no? But I think, no, I think what's important. Ala, nag-ulan na, class. Kusog kaayo. Let's just continue. Are you still okay there? Kusog yun kayo siya maulan, no?
Yes, ma'am. Wala pa
Yes,
man nagulan dali sa
ma'am.
Actually, ma'am,
Wala na sa mo,
wala na
ma'am.
pag-dili kay sa mo ang dagong
paingan pa siguro na dari, ma'am.
Gikan sa Claveria ang ulan.
sana dili sa balingan sa Marv. Hindi mo kusog yung hangin. Adlok ay.
Okay. Laban lang ito din ya. 30 minutes na lang. So, okay, let's continue na lang, no? Yeah, so if you may think that your ideas might not be valid, no, but ano class ka ng, I guess to a degree, no, if I had my own idea as well, sometimes I also have my own ideas that would explain, that I think can explain things that are happening. I'll just mention one, no, that I have here. Throughout the pandemic, actually, nagsulat-sulat ko og mga research ideas na ako. Kaya marag na ako'y kakakitaan sa news, na mura bito, tsada, lagi ni siya himuan og research paper. Oh. Pero, kuan lang siya. Even anything personal that you undergo, no, on a personal level, sa imuhang, in your experiences, you feel like there is something that you notice personally that you would like to affirm through research. So, for example, I have here, I have a research idea actually, not the regard. I'm just going to speak louder, class, because of the rain. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have an idea. COVID-19 sparked international interaction, increased cooperation with other countries, and professionals living in different Philippine cities following quarantine measures. Do you agree nga moral during the pandemic mas gaka stronger ang atong networks with other people in as far as Manila or even Indonesia, Malaysia, no? Tungod kay mas nakusog ang interaction during pandemic kay tungod everybody's online. Obviously, yes, di ba? Pero I'm not sure if naanay researcher nga nagsulat gid about anang nga topic, no, or so what are the advantages and disadvantages of this interaction? Is it good? What if mawala na ang pandemic, no? Would we still continue to communicate at this level online, or are we going to go back to normal, no? And maybe is there going to be a lesser online involvement in terms of our networks with other people in other countries, no? So that is one thing that I have actually thought about. And if you were the one who thought about that, no, would you think that your idea is valid? I feel like yes, no. One of the things na akong gakakitaan sa usahay class sa kanibitang sa interaction sa mga foreigners kay usahay kay tungod di ba kay naa may level of colonialist mentality sa mga naa sa global south na countries like the Philippines, that we feel inferior sometimes because we are not westerners, no, pero kani gani mga westerners kay murag they share even the stupidest things with our class, such as maski unsa na siya ka mundane nga butang kauso siya tungod nang kay naa sa lain country niya, why not nga kung I mean that's just my idea, class. Now I'm sharing my own personal insights about what I observe, and why not na if I have a good idea that actually has a sense na that actually can contribute to something, why should I not be confident enough about my idea, no, nga kanang kung naay mga lain tungod ng lugar kay kani sila kaning mga foreigner kay kanang they are quote unquote they are quote unquote from more superior, but I don't even believe that foreigners are more superior kay kuan siya kanang depende ra gina sa tao, pero sila gani nga murag pwede sila makaspread og ideas nga nonsense sa tibuok kalibutan, pero why not nga kani bitong kung na kay maayo nga idea dili ka magpadala sa imo ang pagka we should try to like deny these connotations that we are Filipino, no? We should be more proud in a way sa atong ideas because we never know if it can help other people, if it can contribute to society, no? So murag that's how I see it, no? In terms of validity of one's ideas. So let's just continue on. Now, research is a habit of questioning what you do, and it is a systematic examination of clinical observations to explain and find answers for what you perceive. So that was my perception, trying to validate my perception, or maybe gani is at the end of your research basin basin bitaw dili di sakto imong theory or you spent all that time and then you found out in your data nga mali di imuhang nahuna-huna. So that's fine as well, no? At least that there is still knowledge that can be found in that process. Nagyapon kay find out, a person can still find out something from a negative conclusion. So with a view to instituting appropriate changes for a more effective professional service. So these are some of the inspirations that I have, particularly in research class. Now, I'm a huge fan of National Geographic. I actually have a copy of Nat Geo here with me, but this is an old issue, 1997. Karaan na ni siya nga copy. And there's an article here about, class, about crypts, the Royal Crypts of Copan. Is there the Royal Crypts of Copan? It shows, class, no? It shows, remember our lesson in comparative international systems? Anyone? About about America, like South America. So ito nga lesson gani sa una. Comparative international systems. Katong ancient nga mga Mayans, remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. So kani siya nga article about ni siya sa isa ka city, Mayan city sa Honduras. Unya I really am interested in these things because these are researchers themselves, pero these are just anthropologists. They are anthropologists, not really IS, but still connected gapon kay research niya. Kani mga anthropologists kay specialized naman kay ni kay kuan naman sila, expert na ni sila nga na magkalot-kalot. Kalot-kalot og mga skeleton bitaw niya ila din na i-analyze dayon niya. Diba? So, murag ka-interested kay kog mga yani class sa mga ruins bitaw kay kuan siya kanang ma-amaze ka ba sa research nga mura bitaw there are so many things about our world that are still a mystery. Ay bitaw nganong naay mga ruins unsa di ilang kinabuhi sa una katong ancient times pa no. Anya if wala pay researcher dili na ato may bal-an nga knowledge kung unsa ang stories behind these ancient kingdoms no. And dagan pa gani kayo lain nga mga archaeological facts or artifacts sa Pacific, for example, kani mga isla sa Pacific Ocean, dagan gyapon mga na-discover nga ruins didto niya matingala sila nganong naay dagko nga pyramid didto no. So or even at the level of scientists, aeronautics no, that trying to explain phenomena in space. So it's really vast class and the world is very interesting, and that's something that we can try to get inspiration from no in your research paper perhaps kung naa mo yung makipan na interesting topic, hopefully you can research about that. So these are some Nat Geo explorers. Victoria Herman is a geologist, a geographer. I think she's a geographer and she's studying the effects of climate change in among poor communities. Did you know nga diri sa Alaska class o diri sa kuan pod sa tawag ana na mga regions sa kuan sa Amerika nga in the next 50 years malubong na sila sa tubig tungod sa pagtaas sa tubig no. So mo na ilang gina-try og understand karon and what are the changes na kailangan nila buhaton should they go away from their place. And I'd like to share one thing about Dr. Victoria Herman. No? You can look for her in Instagram. Gina-follow na ko ni siya sa Instagram actually. What she noticed or what she found out bitaw class kay there is a relationship between identity and place. Ingon si Dr. Victoria Herman nga people do not want to migrate from where they live in maskin pa ko unsa naka-dangerous ang climate change ang impact nga community nila, pero tungod kay naagid sila deep na relationship sa ilahang home no na dili gina sila mohawa maskin pa ko ingnon nimo nga delikado na imong kinabuhi tungod kay mabahaan na ka, pero because a person's identity is very much instilled in a place no ingana di ka importante ang lugar nga sometimes kaning that your identity, what will happen to who you are if your place or your home is washed away because of climate change. Somewhat they say nga kuan ka no that who you are disappears as well. A part of you also disappears if your home also disappears. So how do you even build a new identity no, in a new place? So that's also another question that, I mean, people who have migrated can all relate to. Anyone who has migrated to another country and might question those questions or ask those questions about their experience. And then experiments done in Nat Geo TV. Napoy ka mga experiments about mga mundane na things lang. So that's just an introduction for just to spur the conversation on research. At this point, let's just go through the video on COVID 2025, and I would like you to take note of the following questions, class. Now, I'm not going to post it anymore, but kindly write down lang COVID 2025. So question, what are some pertinent issues in the next 5 years in IR? So again, what are some pertinent issues in the next 5 years in IR? In international relations. And then another question, what research topics can we do in relation to COVID-19? Not really what research topics can be done? Or what research can be done in relation to COVID-19? Okay, so I'm going to play the video here. It's just a 5-minute video. We still have time. I want you to give me answers to those 2 questions again. I'll type it na lang para makita ninyo. This will be the output for the week na lang, class. I'm going to post a Google Classroom assignment, and this will be worth 10 points na, 5 points per question. Kindly answer the question, and this should be done individually. You are going to sign an honor code, no, signifying that you did your work by yourself or on your own without anyone's assistance. So just write it. I'll try to make a Google form na lang para sa form lang ninyo isulat inyong answers aning questions. What research can be done in relation to COVID-19? That will
Today na siya, ma'am, no?
the deadline will be on Monday. Yes.
Okay.
I'll play the video, and I would like you to answer the following questions. What are some pertinent issues in the next 5 years in IR, and what research can be done in relation to COVID-19? This will pertain to the 3 videos, so please answer the 2 questions basing from the 3 videos that we will play right now. And then just answer put your answers in Google, in the Google form that I will make. I'll try to post the form tomorrow morning. Kaya muli na ko, napul ko kanang muli sa kaya ulan na. Maybe I'll just play one video for lack of time, but let's just look through this. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The international system is surprisingly fragile.
I'll adjust the volume. Please adjust your volume on your side. Kaya mukusog ni siya. Gi maximum na ako.
The international system is surprisingly fragile, that a disease that could spark up in one area of one country could suddenly spread globally and literally shut down the international system.
The coronavirus is changing life as we know it on a daily basis. In COVID 2025, we'll explore how the pandemic is rewriting our future.
I hope for the future coming out of this crisis is that we really recognize how interconnected the world is. This is something that we give lip service to. We talk about how, oh, the world is connected and you can go on the internet and talk to someone who's in China right now. You don't have to wait on them. We talk a lot about this. We're very much aware of the global economy, of the interconnected nature, but I don't think we recognize how intimately salient that is to us until we suddenly see something like this. We're seeing states kind of retrench to themselves, protect themselves, raise barriers, and in a way avoid kind of the cooperation that might actually be, in some ways, a better solution to this problem. This is just emphasizing or heightening trends that we observed happening prior to COVID-19. But one of those ways is we're starting to see a fracturing, if you will, of what many people, many scholars, pundits, folks in the media, and et cetera, have referred to as the liberal international order. One of the key features of it are all the various international organizations, international institutions that have been formed largely since World War II. Things like the United Nations, the WTO, prior to that, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and most notably the World Health Organization, being an institution that came into existence after World War II, and with the purpose of helping to address these very pandemics that we're seeing. The Chinese government has used COVID-19 as an opportunity to try to begin positioning itself as an alternative to U.S. leadership, if not trying to directly replace U.S. leadership. These two countries were already viewing each other as competitors. We're witnessing them competing with each other during this crisis. And I think that following the crisis, we're going to continue to see them competing with each other, whether that is trying to create alternative international institutions. But the U.S. say, you know what? We're not going to worry about focusing on creating global institutions. We're going to focus on supporting more regional institutions or institutions that are more specially tailored to U.S. interests. And could China do the same thing? Could China create, say, a Chinese health organization and encourage countries to join that? The COVID-19 crisis has highlighted the centrality of the Fed and the U.S. dollar to the international system, and in particular, the global economy. What happened back in 2008 during the international global financial crisis was the Federal Reserve took a leading role as kind of serving as a lender of last resort, not just for U.S. funds, but globally. Well, we're seeing this being heightened further in this crisis, where a host of central banks are essentially being lent to by the Federal Reserve. In fact, some observers of this have even said the Federal Reserve has now become the world's central bank, not just the U.S.'s central bank. That's not something that's going to suddenly change once this crisis is over. And so in many ways, this is only further entrenching the centrality of the Federal Reserve and the U.S. dollar in the global economy. That's going to have a profound long-term impact. We're talking a lot about the United States. We're talking quite a bit about, if you will, problems facing the developed world. But a big point of concern is what's going to happen in the developing world. COVID-19 hasn't yet hit the developing world at the same rate, scale that it's hit the developed world. There's real concern that this is going to do long-term damage to, say, various nations in Africa. This could become a humongous humanitarian crisis in India. So this is a huge concern. And given that one expects these to be the major growth markets of the global economy going forward, if they're devastated by COVID-19, that again could have profound impacts going forward. An outcome that should be encouraged as a result of COVID-19 is this realization of the fragility of the international system. The problem is when the pandemic is gone, the pandemic will be gone. And it may be gone for 5 years. And during that time, people have a tendency to revert back to a kind of a very myopic view, very short-sightedness of kind of saying, well, what's my current problem? And I'm going to spend money and budget for the current problem. And I share this phrase with my students, which is that for many of the biggest problems in the world, you can't tech your way out of it. At the end of the day, you need to have a political solution to many of the problems that we face in the world today.
Okay. So just take time to organize your notes now. I think what's interesting, class, in the case of the US, no, during the height of the quarantine in March to April, was the lack of action done by some of the local federal governments in New York, for example. There was a lack of political action, which exacerbated the spread of the virus. So I think the last part that the professor was mentioning here, the speaker was, the speaker here is political scientist Paul Post, Poast, from the University of Chicago. So he mentioned that there should be a political solution to a problem. Do you agree? Like stronger government action during the pandemic,
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
right?
Strongly agree.
Yeah. I think our governments are doing well man here in the local level. Pero sa sugod murag nakuan pa kanang kuan pa si Moreno, apay gamay nga mga katingalahan bito nga mga actions si Moreno, pero karon mag okay na ang dagan sa local government sa CDO. Okay, I hope you were able to take note of what Professor Paul Roast mentioned in his talk. No? Kindly also answer from the 2 other videos that I posted. Also write responses there. I'll increase the points to 10 points per question, so this will be 20 points in total. Deadline will be on Monday. I'll post the link tomorrow morning. Questions? Okay, if none, that will be all for today, class. Thank you. I'll see you on Monday next week. Again, on Monday,